The truth lies in the middle of perception, and our eyes have vows that will explain. Sometimes it's hard to comprehend who's to compromise that empty promise. Full of remorse that can't find a way out for the peeking for the life of the shadows are not easily overlooking over the logic and the sweat producing the thought for the not provide for the sleep through the amnesty for the periphery of the eyes and to see the unbelievable and pray to the ideologies in the parallel form of the paradox. That line for the propaganda for proportionally pray before you pray for the eyes open and closed mind to find the bliss in the execution. Feel the peace beneath that surface of the common ground. Unfamiliar bloodlines untied to the wrist. Loosely resist for the destitution. The ante up the ancestral belly talk for that you had no ears to feel the witness of the mirror for the past message. Walked past the pastor of pastors in place of plastic garbage patches to fill holes in ozone. You need to be apologetic for the silence and rather authentic for not talked about for the ears of scripture and interpretation for the scriptures. That living word you find haiku in syllables and feeling the paraplegic pain. Settle for the unsure to raise a hand and affects the fist tight for the righteous acts. Not reactions to rights. Swipe to the tender topics in the troubling water strapless like jackets to cold the chill factor. Blood that warms the heart to ignite the emotion, utilizing the kinetic energy for the circulation to break cycles and patterns and thoughts and talks and cultures and paradoxes. Soon somewhere synonymous to the equinox of space and time's relevance to find the truth in the numbers and forget to not forget them for not to be untie the curse words. Tongue-tied and the lack of words that misled the heart to the piece of paper mache to a balloon to not crumble away for the wind for the present current love breezes to take flight for the counting of the number of the times to answer that man to eventually was the calling. Know that purpose to not propose position to propel for vision tone tuned to the suicide for the high notes to sing to the mother earth white noise easily mistaken as missing or mistaken not to replace or reported for the daughters to distant ways of the gravitation to pull vibrating rates and vibes to tribes to families to ox to herbs and all capitalists. Capacities and capital zip codes and ode to the of souls for the greed connected for the soul reincarnated for the carnation who love. Vehicles to drive for the ambition, steer clear for the pollution. Cannot wait to give the carbon emission electronically reconditioned at any weather conditions. Rendition, invited by the invited for the vital times, and you don't have to watch your name for the numbers around the clock for the quarter before in the house. How to keep it like Benjamin Button for the wonder and thought. Was getting for the odor for the history and obsolete libraries and for the silence not to speak loud enough to arouse or to awaken those sheep. Lies in the middle of perception, and our eyes have vows that will explain. Sometimes it's hard to comprehend who's to compromise that empty promise. Full of remorse that can't find a way out for the peeking for the light for the shadows and not easily or looking over the logic in the sweat producing the thought for the not five for the sleep through the amnesty for the periphery of the eyes and to see the unbelievable and pray to the ideologies in the parallel form of the paradox. That line for the propaganda for proportionally pray before you pray for the eyes open and closed mind to find the bliss in the execution. Feel the peace beneath that surface of the common ground. Unfamiliar bloodlines untied to the wrist. Loosely resist for the destitution. The ante up the ancestral belly talk for that you had no ears to feel the witness of the mirror for the past message. You walked past the pastor of pastors in place of plastic garbage patches to fill holes in ozone. You need to be apologetic for the silence and rather authentic for not talked about for the ears of scripture and interpretation for the scriptures. That living word you find haiku in syllables and feeling the paraplegic pain. Settle for the unsure to raise a hand and affects the fist tight for the righteous acts and not reactions to rights. Swipe to the tender topics in the troubling water strapless like jackets to cold the chill factor. The truth lies in the middle of perception, and our eyes have vows that will explain. Sometimes it's hard to comprehend who's to compromise that empty promise. Full of remorse that can't find a way out for the peeking for the light for the shadows and not easily or looking over the logic in the sweat producing the thought for the not five for the sleep through the amnesty for the periphery of the eyes and to see the unbelievable and pray to the ideologies in the parallel form of their paradox. That line for the propaganda for proportionally pray before you pray for the eyes open and closed mind to find the bliss in the execution. Feel the peace beneath that surface of the common ground. Unfamiliar bloodlines untied to the wrist. Loosely resist for the destitution. The ante up the ancestral belly talk for that you had no ears to feel the witness of the mirror for the past message. You walked past the pastor of pastors in place of plastic garbage patches to fill holes in ozone. You need to be apologetic for the silence and rather authentic for not talked about for the ears of scripture and interpretation for the scriptures. That living word you find haiku in syllables and feeling the paraplegic pain. Settle for the unsure to raise a hand and affects the fist tight for the righteous acts and not reactions to rights. Swipe to the tender topics in the troubling water strapless like jackets to cold the chill factor. The truth lies in the middle of perception. truth lies in the middle of perception, and her eyes have vowels that will explain. Sometimes it's hard to comprehend who's to compromise that empty promise. Full of remorse that can't find a way out of the people
that the Great Pyramid itself has always been connected with the afterlife.
What you'll find inside those pyramids is acres and acres and acres of texts, deeply inscribed into the walls. They belong to the same vast body of literature to which belongs the famous ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead. But the ultimate moment in your journey through the Duat is your entry into the Judgment Hall of Osiris, the Hall of Martin, where you will be asked to account for everything that you've done with your life. So it seems to me very clear that the Great Pyramid is part of an attempt to create a three-dimensional model of the afterlife realm.
If the ancient text from both Sumerian cuneiforms and Egyptian books suggest the Great Pyramid as a place to resurrect the dead, could there be another hidden message?
There is an ancient code to be found within the Great Pyramid. It's within the geometry, not just of the pyramid itself, but its relationship to the other two main pyramids of the Giza Plateau. Having studied this for a number of years, it seems to be related very much to do with the idea of the music of the spheres, the idea that there is some kind of connection between the primal tones of the universe itself and their relationship to the creation of form and structure in the physical world, and that to somehow attune and enhance this connection, that certain proportions have to be constructed into the design of the pyramid and also the geometry of the landscape itself. And these seem to reflect the musical intervals, in particular those which are known as the perfect fourth, which has a ratio of 4:3, and those known as the perfect fifth, as a ratio of 3:2, one of which is an inverse form of the other.
If the Great Pyramid is indeed a construction to harmonize creation, wherein lies the code to such a great power?
Many people don't know this, but in fact it's not a four-sided pyramid. It has a very slight concavity on each side, making it an eight-sided pyramid. Now, the minute you do this, you not only complicate the design tremendously, but it produces a very bizarre geometry. So, this geometry, when we analyze it, produces numbers. Numbers keep popping out. Numbers that shouldn't be there. Things like universal constants. That has been the phi constant, but we have now strange numbers like coming up into the sun.
Could this geometry produce a message?
The Great Pyramid is situated within a whisker of latitude 30. It seems like the latitude choice was derived from astronomy, because there's a lens effect on the atmosphere of the Earth, and when you take that into account, a tiny error shy of latitude 30 goes away. We're on astronomical latitude 30, if you like. It seems like a very deliberate choice, because it's not a roundabout.
That the Great Pyramid itself has always been connected with the afterlife.
What you'll find inside those pyramids is acres and acres and acres of texts, deeply inscribed into the walls. They belong to the same vast body of literature to which belongs the famous ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead. And the ultimate moment in your journey through the Duat is your entry into the Judgment Hall of Osiris, the Hall of Martin, where you will be asked to account for everything that you've done with your life. So it seems to me very clear that the Great Pyramid is part of an attempt to create a three-dimensional model of the afterlife realm.
If the ancient text from both Sumerian cuneiforms and Egyptian books suggest the Great Pyramid as a place to resurrect the dead, could there be another hidden message?
There is an ancient code to be found within the Great Pyramid. It's within the geometry, not just of the pyramid itself, but its relationship to the other two main pyramids of the Giza Plateau. Having studied this for a number of years, it seems to be related very much to do with the idea of the music of the spheres, the idea that there is some kind of connection between the primal tones of the universe itself and their relationship to the creation of form and structure in the physical world, and that to somehow attune and enhance this connection, that certain proportions have to be constructed into the design of the pyramid and also the geometry of the landscape itself. And these seem to reflect the musical intervals, in particular those which are known as the perfect fourth, which has a ratio of 4:3, and those known as the perfect fifth, as a ratio of 3:2, one of which is an inverse form of the other.
If the Great Pyramid is indeed a construction to harmonize creation, wherein lies the code to such a great power?
Many people don't know this, but in fact it's not a four-sided pyramid. It has a very slight concavity on each side, making it an eight-sided pyramid. Now, the minute you do this, you not only complicate the design tremendously, but it produces rather bizarre geometry. So, this geometry, when we analyze it, produces numbers. Numbers keep popping out. Numbers that shouldn't be there. Things like universal constants. Constants, that has been known for over 100 years. The phi constant, the golden ratio. But we have now strange numbers like Euler's number coming up in the design.
Could this geometry produce a message?
Is situated within a whisker of latitude 30. It seems like the latitude choice was derived from
Access the next realm of consciousness for necessary for the evolution from not ignoring the spiritual which is caused to the defects. It is the culture on our planet. It's not easy to identify ourselves for the individuals and not without spiritual synergy. Being we must do better for the going further for the trapping realm of five senses is bigger than us. It's the intention and the attention. Lots of us to feel this intuitively for the must knowing for the fast and to define the future for the driving of the self and it should not be driven for the fear of the desire to define for the realm of consciousness but necessary for the evolution from not ignoring the spiritual which is caused to the defects. It is the culture on our planet. It's not easy to identify ourselves for the individuals and not without spiritual synergy. Being we must do better for the going further for the trapping realm of five senses is bigger than us. It's the intention and the attention. Lots of us to feel this intuitively for the must knowing for the fast and to define the future for the driving of the self and it should not be driven for the fear of the desire to define for the realm of the senses and material of self. We must anchor ourselves from the ourselves and to connect to each other for the better for the anybody else and the divine self to connect with the literally everything and everyone. It's a divine beauty for in all of us and everything and this is perceived as the dark world for the more for the sea beyond the outside illusions who will create the more diverse culture. Harmony based for the love of the planet for the region. Religion and politics and oppression has denied the U.S. or us as access to these ideas. We must go temporary. Transient ideas for the individualism for the is more important than the paganism for the ideologies integrity related to us and earth. We know the integrity for the fact that related to the environment we are the service to. Self is temporal for the illusion, the element of truth, and this is oneness, and we believe in so much of the identities and the individualism and egotistical programming that which is all transitional. We must find a commonality for the love sharing and forgiveness and understanding for the togetherness and synergy as long as the cultures and natives and narrative shifts as suppressed greed to lust for the existence and opposition for the nether leaders and the corporations who prey upon the negative falsehoods and facets. Humanity for the line for the between the good and evil runs, not between the cultures and regions for the creeds and not before every human heart for one planet, one love, and one chance. We can access the next realm of consciousness for necessary for the evolution from not ignoring the spiritual which is caused to the defects. It is the culture on our planet. It's not easy to identify ourselves for the individuals and not without spiritual synergy. Being we must do better for the going further for the trapping realm of five senses is bigger than us. It's the intention and the attention. Lots of us to feel this intuitively, for the must knowing for the
truth lies in the middle of perception, and the eyes have vowels that will explain. Sometimes it's hard to comprehend who's to compromise that empty promise.
We must anchor ourselves from
Full of remorse that can't find a way out for the peaking, for the light, for the shadows, and not easily overlooking over the logic and the sweat producing the thought, for not provide for the sleep through the amnesty, for the periphery of the eyes to see the unbelievable and pray to the ideologies and the parallel form of the paradox.
Harmony base for the love.
That line for the propaganda, for proportion, we pray for the poor, you pray for the eyes open and closed mind to find the bliss in the execution.
These ideas we must go temporary.
Feel the peace beneath that surface of the common ground, unfamiliar bloodlines untied at the wrist, loosely resist for the destitution, the ante up the ancestral belly talk for the you had no ears to feel the witness of the mirror for the past message.
Self
You
is
walked
temporal,
past the pastoral pastures in place of plastic garbage patches to fill holes in ozone. You need to be apologetic for the silence of whether authentic for not talked about for the ear's description and interpretation for the scriptures.
As long as it's cultures and natives and
that living word you find haiku and syllables and feeling the paraplegic pain settle for the unsure to raise a hand in effect, the fist tight for the righteous acts, and not reactions to rights swiped on the tenor toppers and the troubling water strapped as light jackets to coat the chill factors.
You can access the next realm of consciousness.
Blood that warms the heart to ignite the emotion, utilizing the kinetic energy for the circulation to break cycles and patterns and thoughts of cultures and paradox and somewhere synonymous to the equinox of space and time's relevance to find the truth in the numbers and forget to not forget them for not to untie the curse words.
Going further for the trapping realm, 5 senses is bigger than us.
Tongue-tied and lacking words that misled the heart to the piece of paper mache to the balloon to not crumble away for the wind for the present current love breezes to take flight for the counting of the number of the times to answer that man to eventually
not ignore the spiritual which is caused to the defects. It is the culture on our planet. It's not easy to identify ourselves with the individuals and not without spiritual synergy. Being we must do better for the going further for the trapping realm, 5 senses is bigger than us. It's the intention and the attention. Lots of us to feel this intuitively, for the must knowing for the fast and should define the future, for the driving of the self, for the should not be driven for the fear, for the desire to define for the realm of the senses and material self. We must anchor ourselves from the ourselves and to connect each other from the better from the anybody else and the divine self and connect it for the literally everything and everyone. This is divine beauty for in all of us and everything, and this is perceived as the dark world for the more for the sea beyond the outside illusions who will create the more diverse culture. Harmony based for the love and the planet for the region, and religion and politics and oppression has denied the U.S. or us as access to these ideas. We must go temporary. Transient ideas for the individualism for the is more important than the paganism for the ideologies integrity related to us and earth, and we know the integrity for the fact that related to the environment we are the service to. Self is temporal for the illusion, the element of truth is oneness, and we believe in so much in the identities and the individualism and the egotistical programming that which is all transitional. We must find a commonality for the love, sharing, and forgiveness and understanding for the togetherness and synergy, as long as the cultures and natives and narrative shifts as it suppresses greed, the lust for the existence, the opposition for the nether leaders and the corporations who prey upon the negative falsehoods and facets. Humanity for the line for the between the good and evil runs, not between the cultures and regions for the creeds, and not before every human heart for one planet, one love, and one chance. We can access the next realm of consciousness for necessary for the evolution, for not ignore the spiritual which is caused to the defects.